Last week I mounted the wood chipper onto a timber frame and connected it to the engine, and that went really well, so I just carried on along the same lines. So it's going to have a slopey bottom.
And then a bit of 18mm or something should bring it up to sort of where we want it.
Will helps out here sometimes, and he added timber to support the input chute. I cut the chute itself from 2mm steel plate. It's just 4 pieces, which I tack welded together and then stitched with the MIG welder. It won't win any prizes, but it's not going to fall apart either. We had to modify the gear cover plate a little to make it fit around the timber, but it's still secure and it covers all the dangerous stuff. And then the input chute is just screwed down too. It has to be removable easily so I can get at the blades to sharpen them. The other main change I made was to the clutch lever. I redesigned it and cut new steel plates, and now it reaches right up to the roof and stops against the purlin. I found a couple of springs, and together with some string and a cleat, I now have a way to activate it from a safe distance. I can pull the string from outside the engine shed, and that pulls the belt tight. And if I release the string, the springs pull the lever back to a neutral position. So this way, I can stand a lot further from everything, which feels much safer.
On a hot day.
Time to test it out. I'm still learning the best way to start the engine, but turning it over a few times without any fuel seems to help warm up the cylinder head. And then turn on the fuel and away she goes. Although I suspect this only works during the summer months. The input chute makes a huge difference. The branches go in the right place and they won't get tangled in the gears. Yes, you could still reach in if you really wanted to, but it's a little harder now. The tension on the lever needs some experimentation. It slips if it's too loose or if something gets stuck in the blades, which is obviously a good thing. Far better that the belt slips than something breaks. So I just have to learn how tight to pull the string so it doesn't slip too often. But when it works really well. As you can see though, the chips are flying everywhere, which isn't good because they could jam under the belt or something. So I started adding baffles to send them in the right direction. The priority was to guide them past the flywheel and the belt, but that only took a bent piece of ply. But lots of the chips are still flying too far, so I used more scrap pieces just to aim them better. It's all wooden, so it was quick, and it ended up simpler than I'd supposed to steer all the chips into a waiting fish box. Will's turn to start the engine this time. He's getting very cranky these days. This is a very satisfying job, especially when the fish box fills up so quickly.
Brilliant. It's all gone in the fish box.
Still learning about the best tension on the clutch, but we're getting there. Now I think it's fairly clear that these are not chips at all. They are chunks. So this machine really is a chunker or a branch logger. I've been calling it a chipper because that's what the manufacturers call it. But anyway, these chunks or chips are exactly what I'm looking for. They're ideal for turning into charcoal. I wouldn't want them any fatter, although I suspect the machine could cope easily and the engine probably wouldn't even notice. So far, all the branches have been dry ones, so we tried a fresh green willow branch, and that went through perfectly. After that, I painted everything. Doesn't it look smart? It's all working even better than I'd hoped. At a fraction of the cost of a proper log chunker, the speed seems fine, I think. The clutch system works well. There's plenty of power getting through and everything appears to be stable and safe enough. Well, for a machine that features large whirling blades, that is. People suggested I needed a bigger flywheel. But it seems that's not true, at least not for this sized branch. And if I do decide to add a brake sometime, then a flywheel would make that harder because there'd be more inertia to overcome. Some people have suggested I should have raised the chipper altogether to make it easier to collect the chips. But that would mean lifting all the branches too at the other end, so I think this will do. The input chute slopes down too, so loading is easy. One day, of course, a conveyor belt at the output end would be nice, but that will have to wait.
So that's the biggest we've tried. Stand back, everybody. It's a bit clogged up here. Really long one. Woo!
I made this machine to chip all the twigs and branches in the field, and there are plenty of those. But I only have 2 spare fish boxes, and they aren't going to get me very far, so before I can go any further, I have to stop and make something to put the chunks in. To the drying tunnel. I think you might find that interesting, so tune in next time.